Okay. So in here, right, you have the shared vision and goals. So that is really important that you all have that. I think the backbone organization, all of you that are on are serving in a backbone role. And then we have partnerships, leadership, and governance. And this last year, those were separate and now they've been merged together. So for this year, those three, for some of you, you may already have those, but that is the minimum expectation for you all this year, that at the end of the year, you need to make sure that you have the vision, the goals, your role as the backbone organization solidified, and that there is a strong set of partners and that you have a governance / kind of decision-making model in place. And then the newer element that came out this last year was the resident engagement. So the definition of that is in here. Some of you are in various aspects of engaging the community. So, you know, the expectation, I think, for this next year is really to be doing more this year. I keep saying next year. It's this year now, you know, for resident engagement. And then wellness fund / sustainability. Again, some of you are all in different places for that. So I think there's a beginning expectation around that, as well as the portfolio and data. Some of you, again, are all kind of in different spaces. So just wanted to, you know, make sure everybody's clear on all of this. Again, this table will be in there. It's not going to go away. So, you know, that may be useful in terms of a reference. Any questions on any of that before we move on? No, does that seem clear? Okay. So checking.
Okay. Okay, everybody. So we have a check-in question and a table below. We would love to have you fill out the table and to answer these three questions. What are your intentions for your ACH in 2019? What do you need help with? What elements? And what do you have to offer to the cause? So as a learning community, it's really, you know, how do we support each other? What is it you can help in terms of resources, or maybe you've done something on here that others haven't had an opportunity to do. So maybe you host a conversation. Maybe you do a one-on-one conversation with someone that it sounds like could use that. So, you know, what is it you have to offer? And we see Humboldt has already.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
You could stop sharing. Okay. So take a moment to think about that and see the table here and begin to, you know, articulate what that might be for you. I see Humboldt's already started that process, but let's just take a moment of quiet and just have you reflect and populate the boxes for a moment. And then whoever feels ready, maybe we'll start with you, Humboldt, since you're already in here.
I don't actually hear you.
I said to just be quiet for just a moment. Oh, okay. Give them a moment to start filling it out so that when she's talking, they're listening.
Sorry. And we're right next to each other. This is so a good question.
Good. Which one? The intention?
Yeah. I mean, it's just good, all of it, to see, you know. Oh, good. Nice job.
Maybe if everyone just finishes their intention, and it's okay if it's just a draft, right? This might change tomorrow, but just to get started thinking about it in that way. So if we do the intentions and then maybe have Humboldt kick us off, and then as you speak to the other pieces, we could type for you on your behalf.
Just let me know when you guys are ready.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Who's missing?
Lake
And Snappa.
and Napa, yeah.
Hi, Sue.
Yes.
It's Kate, I hopped on.
Oh, you are on. Okay,
Hopped on, yeah.
great. Thanks,
What was
Kate.
that?
You were really quiet when I got on and I didn't want to, I wasn't sure
Okay.
what was happening.
You didn't want to cause a ruckus. Okay.
Kate, I don't know if you're on the doc, there should be a link in the document here, in the chat box. If you want to click on it, we're just populating a table in here with a few questions. And if you click on my picture at the top of the doc, it'll take you to the table.
Was it the Google Doc that was sent out in the email yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that open. Where are the questions you're referring to?
If you click on my picture, it'll take you to the table. And you'll see here.
I don't see your picture.
Or Sue's. Or anyone's probably, because most people right now are
Most
in the
people are in
table.
the table. It's at the bottom, Kate.
Okay, so let's go ahead and pause with the typing and listen to Humboldt, and then we'll go through each of your sites and add it to the table.
Sorry, this is Jessica. I think I misread Sue's email and I thought we had to do this in advance. So
It was.
You
You're
were
right.
supposed to, yeah.
You're right. That's right, Jessica.
Thanks.
Thank you.
But probably wasn't for folks, so yeah. But thank you. Yeah.
So for us in Humboldt, I think really we have spent a lot of the last 18 months, both with the support through CACHI and the support we've had through the Wellbeing Trust, like really developing the infrastructure and governance process and, you know, staff feed fund for the wellness fund. We're still on pretty solid footing around that. There's just been a lot of intentionality around that, and we are definitely at the juncture in the project where, like, you know, collectively the group wants to know where they're making progress around use disorder. So I think that's a real intention of our efforts in 2019 is to start implementing the strategies that are in our portfolio of intervention. Measuring, you know, progress towards our sort of collective work together. And then we've spent a lot of time sort of thinking and talking about distributed leadership in the context of the ACH right now. As the backbone, we've been really driving a lot of the work forward, and there is a real hunger and desire, at least among some of our partners, to have more of a distributed leadership model. So we use some of the ARTA hosting techniques that we learned in Napa at a couple of our governance committee, and that was really, you know, palatable to folks, and they just sort of recognized themselves as actors in the initiative. And so how we kind of continue to foster and support that and grow that role within our ACH is really important to us. So that's our two of our sort of primary focuses for the year.
Great, thank you. And then, yeah, let's move through the three. So what do you need help with in terms of the elements?
So it was a really difficult process, frankly speaking, but we did it. We developed a sort of portfolio of interventions, and that felt like a really big win. And now we're like, oh God, we have to sort of take that from like theory to implementation. So we're just on a call with consultants we've been working with that have been working with some of the other CACHI sites and sort of asking them about that. Like, you know, how are their work groups structured, or like how are they being accountable to each other around these strategies that they've collectively, you know, suggested. So it would be useful to continue to work together about, like, you know, where does the rubber really hit the road around this work. In terms of data, I think our data work sort of fell behind. It was really contingent on developing that portfolio of interventions. And so I think we are at the point now where we want to look at sort of population level metrics around substance use disorder, obviously individual indicators related to our portfolio intervention, and then sort of different data strategies, less about sort of tracking aggregate level data and more about thinking about how we improve local data systems to support individual care delivery. And that is sort of a nice marriage of our interests around the ACH and our role as the HIE in the community. And then finally, resident engagement. I think we just feel a little behind there and like we've just scratched the surface. And so thinking about how we move from sort of using residents as sounding boards to really putting them in, you know, governance and leadership roles.
Great.
And then, you know, I think we're in the last column, happy to contribute however we can, since we have spent a lot of time around infrastructure development. We do have a lot of kind of documentation, or have spent a tremendous amount of time. Sometimes it feels like too much time as a team sort of talking about process or what our process is going to be or what we've learned from past process. So I think, you know, they call it failing forward. We've learned a lot from sort of missteps over the last 18 months. So we'd be happy to share any of that or, you know, where we've had success. So.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. How about Long Beach? I think Christina's on.
Christina?
It doesn't have to be Long Beach.
Hi.
Okay, there you are.
Sorry, I muted my phone but forgot to mute me on Zoom. Okay, so our intention for 2019 is to develop an authentic resident inclusion plan, and then actually to put it in practice. Because we're really great at making plans, but what does that actually mean if we're not doing anything with it? And we've done, I think, really well around our structure and our goals, you know, and our vision, and it keeps coming up in every conversation about, okay, we've gone out, we've done listening, you know, similar to kind of how Humboldt was saying, but we really need residents at the table. How do we do that? And also meeting the professionals where they are. So we need to meet the residents where they're at, the professionals where they're at, and really create an environment where no one feels they're getting the short end of the stick, which will be very interesting to see for this next year. For me personally, my work, you know, as the backbone, like project manager, I really want to complete an in-depth ecosystem analysis of what exists in our city, because we have an idea, but it's so surface. And I know there's so much more going on, and we really can't talk about gaps if we don't know what actually exists. And I hate feeling like I don't know, and so my goal is to know this year. Where I could use help is probably both of those things. So inclusion, how do we really create a plan that authentically includes residents in the decisions that we're making? Because other models that we have in our city are very, they check the box, that they have residents at the table, but not really, and they don't really have a say, but they can check the box that they have residents at the table. And we really don't want to replicate that. And we also don't want them to have a separate place in which they're meeting, and then you have one person reporting back, because we also don't feel like that's authentically engaged and included. The other part is, I guess, processes on doing an ecosystem analysis at the scale in which our city is. Because many counties who have done this, they have more than one person working on it. So if any processes or even groups and consultants that you know of that could help support that, I'd be more than willing to dive into that. That'd be great. And then as far as, let me scroll up to see what the last question is. Oh, what we can offer. I think we've done really great presentations on equity and how equity really plays into the CACHI work, and very specifically into city level data, which you could just take your data and kind of just replace. So if anyone's interested in that, I'd be more than welcome to, willing to share that.
That's awesome.
Great, thank you.
Hi, so this is Heather to update on the Boyle Heights planning for the year ahead. So in 2019, our intention is to move to action on a lot of the work that we've really put the fundamentals in place in the last year. The trauma-informed care work is really kicking off this year, so now is the time that we're working on designing the portfolio of interventions that we're going to be applying across our community. And one of those key elements will be indeed bringing a resident advisory council to the table to help give us that continuous feedback and really help us in designing and implementing the broadest possible portfolio of interventions around this work. We're also dovetailed to that will be a greater emphasis on refining our data collection efforts so that we're really making sure all the partners involved in this work are contributing data to the same system so that we can kind of really gauge how all of our collective efforts are contributing to making an impact around the community capacity and resiliency around trauma. So that's really where we are in January of this year, and I'm really excited to move forward with the work ahead. So in terms of what we need right now, it's an excellent question. I think we're so deeply in the work right now. I feel like we have what we need for the moment. I think our biggest challenges will be down the road as we reflect back on some of the work and we look at some of the data collection efforts and where we're really able to capture and then analyze our data appropriately to show and demonstrate an impact on the issue in the community. That would be something that I think we'll be looking for resources around and some consultancy and advisement on. And I think I look forward very much to reporting back on the efforts around community, the resident and advisory work. We've recently brought a new team member on who has a wealth of experience in community engagement, so I'm excited to leverage that talent in this particular project. In terms of what we can offer, I think really, I don't know. If there's anything that we discussed or described that people would like more on, I would be delighted to share it forth, but I don't know that we have anything in particular that I think that I would offer forward at this time, except that we will be doing a wealth of training protocols around trauma-informed care. So if anyone wants to come and attend some trauma-informed care trainings, we're doing a lot of those for our team and our partners as we build a culture of care for our community members and the collaborative in the work we do. We're trying to create a continuous culture around trauma-informed care and services across our collaborative. So like I say, I think we'll have a lot more to report back in the year ahead that might be really useful and interesting to the group.
Great, thank you so much.
If you guys are not speaking, maybe could you put yourself on mute? There's a couple of, anyway, thanks. Okay.
Oh, Jessica just said, Heather, that she wants to know more about your trainings on the trauma-informed care and culture shift. And some of these could also be pop-up.
Yeah, I'm just adding in here.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we'd really like you to encourage in the spirit of self-organizing is that, at any time, if you have something you want to share, the Zoom is available for you all. Some of you may have Zoom. We could look at other ways. Like I heard Jessica, the work that you're doing really to develop that portfolio, I think would be really helpful. And then Heather, if there's something related to the trauma-informed, like that would be amazing. So please.
And Christina on
And
equity.
Christina, yeah, like all of that, I think it would be awesome. So.
Okay.
Great.
Deborah?
So,
I think Deborah's.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. I was kind of taking some notes and thinking about, and thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And thank you to the other folks who shared. It's really, I'm learning a lot from all of you, and it's really validating to kind of hear where you're at, because I don't know, I feel like in a lot of ways we're in many, we're kind of, a lot of us are at the same place. So we had a really interesting, so this is Debbie Odokent from West Sac. Is that the right Deborah you were asking for?
Well,
That's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. There's Deborah Ward, and then there's you, Deb. But go ahead, and then we'll go back to Deborah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Deborah. I'm actually a Deborah too, and spelled the exact same way. So I'm.
No problem.
Hey, this is Japanese American Deborah. Okay. So we just had a meeting yesterday, and so I'm kind of gathering my thoughts about that. And at our meeting yesterday, we shared our year two assessment. I had sent that out to a handful of our key stakeholders, informing that as well as the action plan, that we had turned in to all of you. And kind of had set the path for this year, and began to kind of share those priorities. And then the folks from the county, Dr. Chapman and Brian Vaughn, who, as you know, is really intimately involved with the Sonoma ACH, just sort of stopped and said, like, we really want to focus this year. We have a bias for action this year. So our representative from Kaiser said, yeah, we have a bias for action. Like, we actually want to get some stuff done. And we get it that we're trying to build infrastructure, but we actually really, everybody was sort of like, we want to do things and do really substantive things that we think we have the right people around the table to actually move the dial forward with some specific activities and actions. And so we had a lot of discussion about, this catch-22 of trying to, create something and a structure. And the coordination aspects and the collective impact aspects of it has been great, but the group is really like, okay, so what are we going to do now? That's very specific. And, a lot of discussion around like, how long is this going to last? And, this whole discussion about sustainability, do we involve other people? Do we not? We know, we're an accelerator side. What does that mean? So it was really kind of an interesting conversation. But so with that as a backdrop, what we set up a couple of work groups. We have had a work group around communications. We've been engaging Andy in that work, and we have a pretty strong work group of 4 folks to really identify, segment kind of audiences we want to do some storytelling with. The county is really taking the lead on the data that's going to, drive that storytelling. We talked about the need to develop a brand. We really started from ground zero, and this wasn't an existing initiative. And so folks really want to get rid of the name Accountable Community for Health. Like, that doesn't mean anything to anyone. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be talking about, like, what is our brand and how do we name our group in a way that's a little bit more inviting for others. So we're going to be visiting our portfolio of interventions in a deeper way than I think we had originally intended, but digging into it and see how that aligns with an action plan that we had been talking about and developing, and aligns with their assessment of where we're at and the work plan that we had turned in as a focus for our work this year. And we want to begin to really more intently say who is around the table and what are the opportunities right in front of us. And so we've formed another work group that's going to meet in the next 2 weeks to really dig into that. We talked about, really focusing on aligning of resources, and think there's a lot of opportunities to do that. At the end of last year, we had a presentation on this continuum of community engagement, and we had been working to more deeply engage residents who live, particularly in the low-income neighborhoods of West Sacramento, in the community hospital needs assessment survey work, as well as the county health assessment work. And I think paid off really well. There's a, there was like a 5-fold increase in the number of surveys that were collected in West Sacramento. And last year, or the last time the survey was done, West Sacramento was the lowest responding city. This year, they're the highest responding city. And so I felt like that was kind of an actionable item, and we achieved that. But that really set the stage for folks wanting to say, like, what are we really doing activity-wise? And so we'll be, I think, the medical director from Partnership Health Plan, who's been really engaged, sort of put out there that we really, that, and the group agreed that the structure that we build really needs to be happening parallel while we're actually doing things together, and coming up with this list of actionable items. And she posted as, what is the structure that will best ensure the continued success of our work together?
And are there particular elements that you feel you need support with? The definitional element?
Yeah, like all of it, I think. Well,
are there any
right now?
uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of noodling through this whole governance structure and, thinking through, do we have the right people around the table, and who else needs to be around the table? And as we talk about community engagement and engaging residents in that leadership structure, like, do we really mean that? And once the intent, how are we going to ensure that in terms of our structure? And these are some of the questions we've been asking, but so, that kind of support would be great. I'd love to talk to others about their portfolio of intervention as well.
Okay.
We have all looked at it as a group. We haven't dug into it and in a deep way.
And is there anything that you want to offer to the group, Deb, around just, maybe some learnings that you think you could share?
I mean, I don't know.
Well, you can think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, think about it. And if you think of it, just stick it in the table, because I think there's some good offerings that the group has.
Okay.
Thank you. And Deborah Ward.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Mickey is also on this call, and she can add in. But I think in terms of our intentions for 2019, we last November, I believe, we identified a sort of a planning design team group that is looking at a couple of things that will fold over into this year. One of those is to complete our institutional kind of repository of knowledge and information in our historical timeline. In 2018, there was some transition, and it was really felt that we should spend some time to really look at where we've been, what's our historical origins here in San Gabriel Valley, and sort of let that inform the future. The future we see being tied to a strategic plan that we would like to get done this year, not a strategic plan that you put on your shelf, but one that is really a collective effort and buy-in from the steering committee of Healthy San Gabriel Valley. We want to, be able to look at our vision and clarify if we need to add anything in addition. Governance is a priority for us this year. So really looking at a decision-making model that works for this group. This group has been together for a number of years, and just looking at one that really supports and we'll continue to engage the group going forward. Part of that is looking at distributed leadership and the role of the backbone, really kind of gaining some clarity and ensuring that we have buy-in and support, which will require us to look at new agreements or MOUs with our partners. And I think those will be some of our intentions for next year. We do want to look at how we can continue to support our efforts from a regional perspective, as well as look at being able to support local programs with over 30 plus cities in San Gabriel Valley. There's a lot happening in this area. So to be able to be a conduit and resource for those cities and communities that are looking at doing um, similar multi-sector and projects. So those are our intentions for 2019. What we need help with is, just having the availability of consultants and TA, particularly around governance and decision making, and as we define the role of the backbone agency. I think also just working with, our leadership on the steering committee as we approach this dual role of a regional approach as well as a localized approach, and being able to articulate that in a way that aligns with the ACH elements. Are supportive of the 7 elements, just to add that the strategic plan would be looking at those 7 elements to see, what would be our short, mid, and long-term kind of approaches to addressing them. Lastly, what do you have to offer to each other? I believe it's our, we have a real strong coalition here, steering committee. So our regional approach in terms of being able to identify different partners in the region, to identify different initiatives that are going on in the 30 plus cities that comprises San Gabriel Valley. Building trust with such a large regional area we provide. I think that there's some best practices around that approach, and see that as something that maybe we can offer.
Great.
Do you have anything?
Yeah.
The only thing I think I would add is the ways that, or the interesting ways that we can look at community engagement. So when you think about it at the city or community level, clearly we have direct access to. When we talk about Health of San Gabriel Valley at the regional level, we've always had this dual kind of, approach of both regional and local ways that we wanted to impact positive systems change. But I think when you think about the regional Healthy San Gabriel Valley initiative, our community are our cities, where the city community, I don't know if that's making sense, but so when you look at sort of the level of our systems that we're trying to engage, it's really important. We've always recognized that cities have to be more involved in our regional effort. We had a lot of regional organizations that were really interested in participating at the regional level, but you can only get so far with digging in
and actual, the portfolio of interventions beyond sort of abstract campaign conceptualization until you get to that local city level where you can really dig in deeper with your intervention. And so I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic, particularly for me now that I represent a city and am working now with more with other cities to sort of think about and talk about utilizing these this model, but on a different level while still plugging into the larger regional effort. So it's this back and forth, which is really kind of interesting to me, of course, now again with my new role, and just really appreciating Deborah's commitment, stepping in. I know she mentioned we had a lot of change, but I think at the same time in the process, we might not have even realized it, but I think we built in to this initiative a great deal of thinking about succession planning and long range strategies that we have adopted and can adopt in the future to ensure that when this inevitable, these staff changes happen in our respective organizations, that there's still a way to move forward. And I feel really great about the fact that that's still happening. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Larry.
So our plan is, as I mentioned last year when we talked, to relaunch our CACHI initiative in a different geographic area, namely in Pomona. We've been working with groups in Pomona for several years on one project and realized as we worked with them that this would be an excellent location to create an accountable community for health. But that means starting with new partners for an ACH, not new partners to us, because our effort is a health-related, multi-sectoral, collaborative effort. So we'll have to work with them to agree on vision and goals and partnerships and leadership. One issue is that there is in Pomona an ongoing effort, ongoing, but in fits and starts, for a very similar initiative. It's Pomona's Promise, and they use a lot of the same language as Accountable Community for Health, or closely related, not exactly the same terms, but it's obvious if you read up on it that this is what they're trying to create effectively, an accountable community for health. So one of the areas that we can use help on is how do you integrate with other activities that have similar goals. On the one hand, that's going to be a positive because they already understand the concept and have commitment to it, but there is an ongoing effort, and we want to work with them to really give it new life and bring in new energy and resources. We also have in our current project, we have a community advisory board, but it's representatives of organizations. It's not residents. Mm-hmm. And that advisory board said it's very important to have resident engagement, as in these people are residents, but people who are not necessarily affiliated with large organizations. So one of the issues we've faced and we can use help on is, do we invite them to join the community advisory board, our existing structure, or do we create a separate entity? I mean, you don't want to, as someone said earlier, I mean, you don't want to just have it in name only. where you invite people and they don't have an integrated, an integral role. So that's one area where we can use help. I know there's a online, I've seen documents, other areas for help, that what other sites have done. There are some documents for the Catalyst sites. Do we have posted any documents about governance and for the accelerator sites? I didn't see those, but I may not have looked in the right place.
Yeah, so one of the things, I think it was, I don't know why I remember this, after our July meeting this last year, and as a result of that, created a shared Google folder. And there's a link up above where I was sharing kind of the resources. And that shared Google folder, inside of it, I've broken it down by the elements. And so as I've been like collecting in my spare time, governance and, you know, other documents or other people have shared, because you're able to actually, if you find something or if you create something, you can post it there. So yeah, there is a collection of various documents related to the elements, governance being one of them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean,
yes, it does. And I found something like that, but it looked like it, maybe I didn't look at it that carefully. They looked like they were from the Catalyst sites, which is helpful. I mean, all of that is helpful.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there isn't, for some of this, there isn't a whole, like, you know, like a lot of this out there. I think some of the accelerator sites have created governance documents. I know probably, you know, 3 at least have, and some of them are interim. And so they're there, but where there is a lot is more so from Catalyst, but I've also gathered some from other states.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that'll be good, not just, I think it'll be good in approaching potential partners who wonder what is this and what, and if you can give them something concrete, I think it would help. As an example, not as for offering. One of the things that we're developing in this project that we've been doing in Pomona are community resource guides. Right now, what we have are maps where you can overlay the different types of resources, whether they're health related or food related, schools, sites for physical activities. And we're going to be using this, keeping it updated and using it for our intervention, for the intervention we're doing, where we have navigators who are basically graduate student volunteers from various social work, nursing, other health related fields, who will be navigators for the residents participating in the program and using these maps as resource guides for them. And that's something, once we have it up and running, it's still being completed. That's something that we would be glad to share.
Nice, awesome. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think Napa's on.
Okay.
No. Jennifer Henn, are you on? I'm not sure that she is. And Kate, do you have anything you want to share? I know you guys are in transition.
Parts over here, Shelley Trumbo, who was our previous executive director for Hope Rising, which is our ACH, has transitioned onto corporate level. So last Friday, we hired a new executive director. So that was a big process in finding the right person, but luckily we did, and she'll start in February. So I think the main focus right now is transitioning her into this role and getting her caught up to speed, which can take a while sometimes, especially, I mean, we have so many phrases and terms and abbreviations for things. So just kind of getting her on board with those and the acronyms and such. And I'm also transitioning out of this role. So by March, I'll be gone too. And I've kind of been the right hand to Shelley in our initiative and getting things going. So kind of maintaining monthly meetings and, for the governing board and the executive community or committee, excuse me. And then also meeting with partners for our different planning sessions that we hope to have throughout the year, our intentions for 2019. And then beyond that, I think we're really hoping to strengthen and expand the Hope Rising Initiative. And our Hope Center Transitional Housing in Lake County is to open in September. So just kind of staying online with that target date and getting all the support that we need from the community and our contributing partners. It's a big part of what we'll be doing, and then just continuing to expand our initiative with SafeRx and building data and different analytical capacities in that sense as well. For help, I think our wellness fund is something that we could use some coaching with. For the executive director, we are trying to create sustainability there. From our partners, we had the 2 hospitals donated the majority of the funding for her role. And then our other partners were all to contribute at least, I think the minimum was like $100 or something like that. So kind of creating sustainability so that we can move past a contract position for this individual and create them as an employee. So help there. And then also we are currently working with Conduit HCI and are heavy into our CHNA process. So doing that and kind of building that data platform and conducting interviews and the key informants or other people that have gone through this process, any guidance there with that information, focus groups and such.
Okay.
And we'll have to be doing those shortly within the next month or so. And to offer, we have a really strong governing system. It's been, I think, pretty crucial in the success to where we've gotten at this point. Our structure has worked really well for us, I'd say. And I think everyone's voice is at the table and respected and appreciated. And also our portfolio of interventions has maintained its strength. So I think that's.
And so Kate, lots of change. Could you maybe either post in the shared drive the most current charter? I know I was helping Shelley with that, or send it to me and I can post it. I can't remember. I'll have to look to see if it's in there, but it would be great just to make sure we have that.
Okay, I don't know if I have the most recent version of it. Did Shelley send that to you?
She is. I'll follow up with you, afterwards. I just want to make sure we get it captured in there.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
I don't know if Susan's on. Fresno.
I don't think she is.
No. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. That was great to really hear out all of those pieces that you're working on and need help with and have to offer. So thank you.
So I'm going to move into a bit of sharing about, kind of where we're at and what's next. And I wanted to start with a bit of kind of a context refresh. So, some of this I think you already know, but, I just wanted to kind of put this out here in terms of thinking about, where we're at. So as you're all aware, there were 44 sites that applied to become an ACH in California in 2016. And, there was this process, right, to do that. And originally the funders had thought that there would just be one cohort. And I think that the funders were very struck by how many people had applied. So fairly quickly after the process, I would say a month later, they said, well, maybe we should, fund another cohort. So as a result of that, the accelerator sites came to be. And admittedly, I think that they didn't necessarily think through everything as much as they had spent time on the original cohort. And, I very much appreciate, and hopefully you all do, the opportunity. And so I think now they're at this place of, okay, we've been at this for 2 years, 2.5 years, with both of the groups, and really this recognition that they want maybe for it to look a little bit differently. So I think that, you know, this last year I referenced the term to you all, stopgap funding, and that's kind of the way that they're looking at it, just recognizing maybe not all of this is figured out. So decided that they wanted to fund the accelerator sites for one more year. So I'm going to talk just a little bit in a bit about the contracts. And while that's happening, the Catalyst sites, their funding actually ends September of 2019. So, you know, both of you will be kind of in the same space. You'll have a little bit more funding. A lot of those Catalyst sites actually have some funds where they've not actually spent all their dollars. So there's also this recognition that more time is needed to figure out, like, what is this model? How do we move forward? So that's kind of this high level context. Any questions on that before I move into kind of our transition state, which is this year? Does that hopefully kind of makes sense? Okay. So I don't know if any of you ever heard that framework where there's the current state, kind of future state, transition state. So I think we're in between kind of our current state moving into, in 2019, a transition state. And what I mean by that is up until now, you know, we are under the initiative of CACHI. You know, Dana and I have been working with you, Barb and Laura and Pat are working with those 6 sites, and there's been some interaction. I think what we're moving towards is more coordinated efforts so that we look to how can we be one initiative, even though it is one initiative, but there's more intention around the sharing of resources and more interaction. So we're kind of in this transition. We're moving at the same time. There's planning that's happening. Tomorrow I have my second meeting with Barb and Laura to further flesh out what will the future look like. So the future being 2020 for this next year. So we're, you know, in this transition. You know, I think we've tried to be really clear about, for you this year, we want you to really make sure you have those elements in place, those 3 that I mentioned, as well as beginning to form the other ones. I don't think, you know, you all completed that capacity assessment, and I would really encourage you to use that on a regular basis because there's levels of readiness, right? There's, you know, not even started, early in place, mostly in place, and high readiness. So just because you have a backbone organization doesn't necessarily mean you're high readiness. So I just want to point that out because there are things that a backbone does that you may or may not be doing. So I'd encourage you to really look at those questions, those prompting questions to see, and we're going to be exploring that more. So it's not that you need to necessarily be in all of those things high readiness, but there should be an increase, right, in your capacities along that scale over the course of this year. You know, I can't really go into a whole lot of detail at this point, but what I can say is if you think about the future state being some continued operation of CACHI in some way, those sites that have a deeper level of capacity in those elements will most likely be part of a future state. I'll just leave it at that. So you are going to see, and you already have, see invites that may come from, this most recent one was from Nadine Levyfield. So she's with the CACHI program team, which is Barb and Laura and Pat. So that's part of, you know, us sharing resources. So there is a webinar this Monday that Sarah Bartleman, who is a data person out of Portland, is going to be providing, and they're going to be sharing a data workbook that I think will be helpful. So that's like an example where, you know, they're doing that. They're originally going to do it just for the Catalyst sites, but they're beginning to have some more sharing. And I think that's going to happen for both, you know, just in terms of the resources. Another example is that on December 12th, this last year, there was a webinar that Ann DiBiase did from Trust for America's Health. So I've posted those materials on our website, the CACHI site, and I put the link in the document. They don't necessarily have, Barb and all of them don't have a site to post the webinars. So we created a CACHI YouTube channel. So you'll see, those there. So that's just kind of a couple of examples for while we're in this transition state, that we're really trying to have more coordination between the two sites. Any questions on that at all? Does that make sense? Okay. So we also recognize that there's a lot going on. And I think, we spent a lot of time and, kind of have put out a way that we want to do work this next year. So wanted to share a timeline with you. So recognizing you have a lot, I think what we're opting to do, right or wrong, is to not have as many group calls. So just looking at what people were interested in, I think people are looking for more interaction with each other. There seems to be a lot of interest in the resident engagement. So, just trying to figure out what's the right way to do that. So instead of having group calls like this every month, we're opting to do them on a less frequent basis, but also then looking to do individual site calls. So for most of you, I met with you usually monthly to check in to see what you needed. We also then will be doing some web discussions, maybe not as many, but trying to really be intentional about those element areas. And then we also want to encourage you to take it upon yourselves to say, I'd really like to share about my mapping process or about my health equity work. So that's something, we just want to make sure that is available for you and that that you can do that. So I'm going to actually share my screen, hopefully. Why is this not? Oh. There's a chat. Okay. So can you guys see this? Hopefully. So this is not pretty, but it's really just kind of a way that we've been thinking about the year. So I just to orient you. So here's the months up across the top. Those are all the months of the year. And then there are activities, down this here. So if you look at Zoom group call, so this is today, January 24th. And then we would have other offerings, which would be web discussions. So we may be hosting those. The program management team might be doing something. I'm a member of All In. Some of you might be getting those. They put on a lot of web discussions. So, there's a variety of different offerings that may be of support. So, I just want to, make that available. What I'm working on, and so you'll see, like Imperial County is a Catalyst site. They've done a lot of work in resident training and putting together a resident training program. They've also developed a wellness fund. So I've asked them to give a presentation. And then I'm working with Santa Clara County, who also is a Catalyst site, to have them give a presentation. So I'm sorry, I don't have the whole year figured out yet, but you can see kind of where we're trying to go. I think, just thinking about that. So you can see we have these calls here. We have web discussions, and then there is this pop-ups, so if anybody is interested in signing up, please have at it. And then there is site coaching. And then what we're opting to do is convenings where we will do face-to-face. So, we'll do a Northern California and a Southern California. And then, of course, there is the convening that will be held in November. They already know the dates for this year, which will be I don't know if it's going to be in Pasadena or in LA. So before I move on to kind of the next calendar, I wanted to see any questions. Does this make sense? Is there any, are you looking at the, okay. You're so excited. And so one of the resources that we garnered, and I think we've talked about this, is the grant that we received from Blue Shield around community engagement. So I think a lot of you attended the Art of Hosting training, so that was part of that grant. So one of the things that we tried to think about is, given that resident engagement is one of the elements, and trying to be appreciative of the time that you may or may not have, you know, how do we coordinate that resource as it relates to kind of the work up here? So if you think about, you know, this work in the ACH, we have another calendar that's here, and you all have the link. And as we're thinking about how we can roll that work out to support this issue of resident engagement. So when last year I put out the Lumio survey, most people said, I think there were 7 or 8 responses that said they wanted assistance with resident engagement. So you are all welcome to join this. And as you can see, we have a variety of different things that we're planning, you know, here along the way. So we will have Zoom calls. Those are all set up. The intention for that work really is for people to become a community of practice around learning more together about what does it really mean to engage community. The goal eventually, right, is to have more residents included in decision making, not just, you know, like, let me just ask you what you think and then go away. And we're proposing that you do that through practice, like that you actually go out and try different things that we're offering and come back to the community of practice. Part of that process was we asked for things that people were interested in. So this notion of forming affinity groups. So there were a fair number of people who were interested in policy. People were interested in technology or youth participatory action research. So that's one kind of possibility, is that you would have small groups who would form a group together and really more deeply explore together as part of this bigger group, different pathways to engage with community. And then we are working on just a variety of different web discussions, particularly related to that. So there's this notion of asset-based community development. So that's a technique some of you may be familiar with. And so what we're proposing to do here is kind of a series that would look at how do you look at the assets in a community as opposed to a deficit model. Then there's this piece of working with media, so earned media, and there's a technique that's called photo voice. So that's another way that you can actually work in community, and then kind of moving towards asset mapping. So this is just an example of trying to offer supports related to this particular effort, right? But it's that particular grant, but it's also supporting CACHI, because the target audience for that grant is CACHI. So I'm going to stop because I know it's a lot, you know, here, and see if there's any questions. Anything that's missing?
So if they wanted to host a pop-up, would they be able to go on here and then
Yes,
just
they all
populate?
have.
So, you know, these things that you all have spoken about that you want, that you have to offer to each other, for instance,
right here.
Humboldt on portfolio of interventions. Like you could say, okay, well in March, I'm going to host an hour call on portfolio of interventions, and anyone that wants to come, I'll send an invite out and we'll talk. I'll find out what it is you're interested in, and then we'll share the story, or however you want to formulate it.
Okay. Clear as mud. Any question? I just want to see, I know for some it's might be a lot. I mean, I think really it is really just trying to be conscious of your time and thinking about, you know, how do we offer things that are going to be useful, and not do it like every day of your life. So.
Looks good.
Okay. And the link for this timeline is in your notes. Let's see. So a couple more things before we close. So I also just want to remind you, you know, there are some resources. Some of you are participating in the community of practice. So you've gone through the training, you're, you know, participating in that. Some of you are participating in the Health Data Ambassador. Everyone has access to the evaluation, and then there's these overall CACHI supports. Today has been really helpful, again, to really hear what is it that is of interest to you so that we can figure out, you know, given the resources that we have, how do we get that? And also just remembering you all are a resource for each other. I mean, you have a lot of learning that you've done as well as the Catalyst sites. So my intention really is to invite them to our convenings. You know, Sonoma, you know, Dana and I actually are doing some work with Sonoma that came out of the Art of Hosting. We're actually, Jessica, you'll be interested in this. We're helping them to develop their governance for their wellness fund because they don't have that in place.
Oh, nice.
So kind of facilitating a process. And I think what we're thinking is we will attempt to document the process of us doing that so that we can make that available to you all. And I just really want to say, like, you know, you're going to get out of this what you put into it, right? And we're really, you know, trying to create like the space and the container for you all, but you know, we need you to, you know, I think we're in this 18 months now. We got another year, you know, to really kind of blossom. So the contracts, it's taken a little bit longer to get this going, and I apologize. So the contracts, you should be seeing those this next week. It's essentially an amendment to your current contract, except for in one case because there's a change happening. And I've linked the expectations. I'm not going to go through all of those. I think I've sent out probably 2 or 3 emails of what's, you know, in there. And so the way that the money is going to roll, and I'm operating off my memory, because the funders don't give me all of the money at once, I think it's either $17,000 or $23,000 the first check. And then the second one, probably 3 or 4 months later, is going to be either 17 or 23. I kind of think it's 17 first and then 23. I can follow up and let you know. And I apologize for that. I just kind of don't have $360,000 sitting around to send out all the checks to everybody. So any questions on that at all? Okay, I know that was a lot. Hopefully it was clear. Okay.
Questions sharing about learning, is that where we are?
Yeah.
So I think just taking a moment to reflect and, you know, what is it you're currently learning right now in the work? We'll take about 5-7 minutes or so to just see if there's any sort of reflections. And maybe let's just take a minute in quiet, and you know, you could just either ponder or write down and reflect on what is it you're currently learning. Like, what is the question or the inquiry or the learning that you're in regarding the work in a more general sense. Okay. So yeah, is there anything that's coming up for you around any reflections or learnings that you're having? Could be a challenge. It could be maybe you feel some kind of roadblock in the way of the work, or, you know, Sue and I today were talking about the fact that many of the ACHs go through a lot of transitions. You know, people coming and going, like what might be something that y'all are doing to navigate that seems useful to share. I mean, that might not be the focus, but just trying to prompt some conversation here.
Hey, so this is Christina from Long Beach. I think someone said it earlier, but the concept of failing forward, that our failures, this is all new. This is a new way of doing business. It's a new way of working with partners. And that it's all, you know, trusting the process, trusting the journey, and really learning from our mistakes, and that failures aren't the end all to everything that we're doing. And it's okay to do some course correction, and it's okay to maybe change your approach, because how else can you really do the work in a new type of system? So embracing that.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I think that as you're doing change work, I mean, that's the essence of change work, right? Because when you think about it, there's no cause and effect when you're doing this kind of work. You don't know exactly how your impacts will affect the system. So there's a lot of sort of doing things, reflecting and seeing what's happening, and then readjusting. So yes, thank you.
And this is Heather. I'll dovetail on that by saying that I'm so grateful for the year extension, because I did feel like there was a lot of, you know, just the buildup and the kind of integrating some of these philosophies and ideas into our structure, and it's fits and starts getting it going. And now I really see this opportunity to really make a lot of progress in the year ahead. So I'm just so grateful for this extra year, because I think it'll really enable us to just be, you know, a lot more definitive at the end of this period in terms of what we've accomplished. And yeah, for all of us, it's hard to integrate these concepts and frameworks into existing work and into existing partnerships. And it just takes some time. So it's working really well. And I just, another little shout out to both of you and the entire team around the Art of Hosting, because that was a wonderful experience. And I'm really, really grateful for the funding that enabled that, and for you guys pushing for making that possible for all of us.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Jessica, and maybe to dovetail off of what Christina and Tiffany said. Again, super appreciative and thankful for the Art of Hosting. I think we have just gotten like so many miles out of that road already in Humboldt. And one of the things that was really simple, but you guys modeled time and time again, that was sort of a paradigm shift for us, was naming things. So just like kind of calling things forward in the room. And I'm sort of thinking about sort of our failing forward experience and the time it really took to put a portfolio of interventions together, and the process that sort of took everyone involved in that work group outside of our sort of normal, you know, comfort zones to do that. And I think one of the most powerful tools that we had in the room was just sort of saying like, oh, this is going to feel different than how we've worked together in the past. That's okay, you know, let's kind of, you know, check in at the beginning and the end of the process to see if it's still working for us. So the naming thing has really been, it's so simple and yet so transformative in a way. So.
Jessica, thank you for saying that. I just want to say that works not only in the ACH work, but like every domain of your life.
Yeah.
Personal relationships.
Yeah, you know,
friends,
husbands, kids.
Although don't come to me once you play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. What else? What other sort of pieces are coming together? Maybe we have time for one more.
This is Deborah with San Gabriel Valley. I would say one of the things that we have learned is that there's a thirst for this type of work. Although it's very challenging, hard, we are finding that as we talk to new partners, if we can get our communication language together, that there's good timing in working together. I think because we are always looking to bring on new partners, and at the same time, we're trying to be consistent. But I think once, for example, our business community, most businesses don't see their intersection with promoting health. When you can get an advocate or a champion who can use the business language to promote many of those elements, it can be transforming as well. And that's a challenge for us as we move into different sectors, is really being able to talk the language.
Great.
Thank you, Deborah. I just want to also name that Deborah has some fierce World Cafe hosting skills. So those of you in Southern California, need a World Cafe host.
That's awesome. I love that thirst for this work. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
So we're gonna now move into requests and offers. So if there's any, I heard so many possibilities of offers and pop-ups, and I'm gonna stop promoting it over and over again, but are there any requests or offers that you would like to share with the group?
In addition to,
well,
just the other pieces that were named earlier. So anything.
Yeah. Anything that wasn't named as a request or offer.
I would just request, I know this is a lot of information, but really thinking about that timeline and if there's something that's missing, hopefully kind of the way we're going about this year, I need to stop doing that. This year makes sense. And I think there are, you can see when you look at it, there are things that aren't on there right now, and just trying to plan for the year. So yeah, I just would ask for feedback there.
Great, thank you. Great. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, so with that, we just want to do a checkout. So if everybody wants to just kind of, how are you leaving this call? Like just one word, couple of words. We'd really just like to, we checked in. Now we're checking out.
This is Deborah again. I would just say I'm feeling encouraged, that I appreciate and the extra year to continue to work on this, and just really appreciate that. And I'm encouraged. I think it gives us the time that we need to all feel comfortable with where the direction that we're going.
Hi, this is Kate. I would say that I'm hopeful and excited, and also encouraged for the new executive director that will start taking my place on these calls. That she has the support system that she'll be able to learn so much from being on and speaking with all of you that have been doing this. So, that's how I'm feeling.
Great.
This is Debbie Odo-Kent. I'm feeling really encouraged and motivated and appreciative of the support. Thank you.
Hi, this is Christina. Honestly, feeling a little overwhelmed. My thought partner is out on maternity leave until June, so that's 6 months. Yeah, and a little nervous about when she gets back to make sure I've steered the ship in the right direction. So I feel, yes, overwhelmed, but I'm trying not to think about it.
Yeah. Can you share a picture of the baby with every, I mean, we all want to
Absolutely.
see.
When the baby comes, I'll share a picture.
Yeah.
This is Dana. I'll just say I'm leaving the call appreciative and grateful for all of your participation.
And this is Sue. It was really helpful to go through that check-in just to hear where you're at and what your intentions are and just what you're really needing and thinking, and just love the idea of you offering up your wisdom of your processes, and so excited for that. Let's see. Anyone else want to share before we close? Okay. I will just say, probably a week ago, I had a meeting with the director of the Healthcare Authority in the state of Washington. They've received like $1 gazillion of federal funds that's flowing out through their ACHs. And she said to me, I think it takes at least 10 years to figure out what an ACH is. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, you know, as you saying you're grateful for another year, you know, of the funding, and they have a lot of money that's flowing through there, and which, you know, I think is a good thing, but also causes a lot more issues. So I just thought I would share that with you because I think it's really interesting. I know Barb has pitched to the funders here in California. It takes at least 5 years. So I think that's where there is this push to actually have it extend longer than it currently is. So I was surprised to hear 10 years. So anyway.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. Yeah. So it's a journey. So have a great rest of the day and week. And if anything is not clear, please reach out. I know it was a lot of information. And again, this stuff is available. It's not hidden. You can look at it at any time. And there is a link in this document that we're in to the call notes from last year up at the top. So if you were just like, what did we talk about in May last year? You could go look.
All right, everyone, be well in your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, thank you.
Uh-huh.